Hi, thank you so much for being here. I want to take a few minutes to talk about the most recent piece that I posted in the series, 10 Ways to Teach Your Children They Don't Matter. I thought I would offer some perspectives on, you could call it the intersection of the way and the why of the piece. It's not an easy piece, and um, I writing it required me finding a form that could hold the weight of it, the weight that was behind it. So the form that I've used to write this piece is what I've heard described as a hermit crab essay. Now, I'm not entirely sure about the origin, the source of this term, but I trust that if you look it up, you could very easily find its provenance. But I do know that it's a form that borrows its structure from something else, something external, like a list or a manual or a recipe, as a way to handle material that is too vulnerable or sensitive. So this piece obviously deals with emotional abuse and neglect of a child. And these are forms of harm that obviously don't leave scars, but they do cause the most lasting damage. So I wrapped this piece in the shape of this how-to guide, in the hope that it would give us, the writer and readers, just enough distance to keep from burning from the heat of the story while still allowing the emotional truth of it to come through. So obviously, there's an irony in using an instructional format for something so painful. The tone of it mimics the style of a helpful listicle or a parenting tip sheet. But as you read, you see the absurdity becomes clearer, and you hopefully start to feel the emotional weight of each instruction. So the form becomes a part of the message, because emotional abuse and neglect do not look dramatic most of the time. These are not dramatic things. It can look like indifference. It can look like silence. It can look like a face that only lights up in certain situations or doesn't light up. Um, but in the form of a how-to, the more brutal aspects of it become clear because it's forced into a structure that we think we understand. And you can use that kind of dissonance to create discomfort. You'll also notice that I leaned heavily on metaphor. Um, and this is as a way to evoke the emotional atmosphere of growing up in such an environment. These aren't just stylistic flourishes, they are an attempt to translate visceral memory into language. Because it occurred to me during the course of, creating this and also just on my journey that emotional abuse is kind of a landscape. It has a climate and a temperature in a way. And these are things that are hard to describe or convey just through explanation. So you need imagery to communicate things that are beyond explanation. So, things like metaphor hopefully let the reader feel and not just understand. Um, and each line of the piece subtly builds on the one before it. if any of them were taken alone, even though they might seem they'd be harsh but isolated, but together they form a pattern of, emotional erasure and conditional love. So the cumulative impact is the point, because that is actually how emotional abuse often works. It's not one blow. It is a death by a thousand cuts. So I use this form, this ironic listicle, to talk more openly about something that needs to be addressed more and understood more, the issue of emotional abuse and neglect, specifically in childhood. This is something that hides in plain sight, but it has profound effects on someone whose brain and self-image is still developing. And when it's severe enough and ongoing, a child may actually lose their sense of self with no physical bruises, no documentation, but the impact is very real, oftentimes worse than physical harm. And I'm including links to resources throughout the series that shed more light on that and why that is. Because children are very concrete. Um, as a child, your thinking is, if you are lovable, you would be loved. The way you are treated is a reflection of your worth. You never put it on the parent or the caretaker. So you are flawed. So, this kind of thing conditions a child to believe that their feelings are inconvenient, their needs are unimportant, and that their worth is essentially conditional. And this can interfere with cognitive, emotional, and social development. It can distort your sense of who you are and what you deserve. I know this from experience. Uh, Growing up, I believed that I was essentially a defect. It never occurred to me that I should have my needs met or that I should even have needs, because I'd completely suppressed, my humanity as an unwitting means of self-protection from the environment that I was growing up in. And obviously I didn't even realize at the time that I believed that. And that belief, if left unchallenged, can shape a person's entire life. I know it did mine for a long time. And interestingly, the way that I actually stumbled upon this form as a way to approach this piece was due to my healing journey and doing research on these issues. I read journals and periodicals and studies, and they often employ structures like lists of behaviors and patterns. And I remember reading through them and always feeling such a sense of resonance in my body, like, yes, that makes so much sense. That explains it, kind of thing. And yeah, so I guess that kind of led me to, that was years ago, but that has stayed with me and eventually ended up making its way into the way I structured this piece. So yeah, that's just an interesting insight of why I wrote this way in this form. That is the power of writing, whether you're writing fiction or creative nonfiction. It gives shape and form to things that otherwise have none, and you know gives us a structure even to silence. You can use it to structure silence in a way that it makes it tangible and shareable. um So, if this piece resonated with you, if it stirred something in you, touched something with you, I encourage you to allow yourself to sit with that and even, maybe do some writing of your own on it, journal about it, what it ends up making you feel or provoking in you. And if you do feel free to share it with me. DM me, email me. I'd love to. to read anything you write during this series. Um, so thank you for reading. Thank you for following along. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. And there is more to come. Thank you.